What is going on, everybody? Welcome back. Welcome back to Medical Sales Live. I'm your host, Omar M. Khatib. I missed you guys. I was gone last week, so it's good to be back. So, welcome back to the show. And as always, if you're joining live, whether you're watching this on LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube, or Zoom, if you're a member of the program, drop in the chat what city you're joining from, because, if you're new to the show, that's how we always start it. I like to see where everybody's joining in from. Topic of the day. So we are in Q4, and unfortunately, as it normally happens, this is the time sometimes that people end up experiencing layoffs, or perhaps since you're going into the holidays and you've realized that, hey, you know what? The company you work for sucks. Time to move on to a new job. The boss you work for is probably a moron. You're not going to advance your career, so it's time to move on. Or in the event that perhaps, maybe you're at a job and the market wasn't good, the product wasn't right, for a variety of different circumstances. You got put on a performance improvement plan, weren't able to hit it, and you just found out that, last week was your last week, right? It happens, right? And so this is usually a tough time, especially a scary time when you're in Q4 because the holidays are around the corner and everything. But I'm here to provide some actionable advice for you in terms of how to use LinkedIn to essentially guarantee, maybe guarantee is a little bit too strong, but put yourself in a better position to get the best types of interviews, increase your chances of offers, right? That and more. And for those of you who haven't experienced a layoff, or let's say are happy with your job, this is still going to be valuable to you, because unless this is going to be the last job you ever work, you do want to know how to do these things, because when the right opportunity comes up, you want to be able to actively take action and take advantage of these things. So that being said, let's get started. So Gustavo joining in from Los Angeles. Hey, Gustavo, welcome. All right. Anne Marie Terry joining from Detroit, Michigan. Hey, Anne Marie, thanks for joining. All right. And of course, how can I forget? Let me bring up my banner. So let's get into the topic of the day. And along with that, of course, I always have to do a quick sound check. Yep, and our sound is good. And so as I get started, for the members of my program who've submitted questions, let me cover this topic first, and then we're going to go right into the Q&A section. Again, if you're interested to learn about the Medical Sales Network Effects program, check the notes in here. There's a link. Go watch that webinar. Apply to get a free LinkedIn consult with me, which is always it's a great consult. I love doing them. And we'll see if you're a good fit for the program, which is growing. I'm very proud of that. And it's a great program. I'm having a lot of fun with it. And more importantly, starting to see people get some awesome results. Okay. So that being said, let's get into the topic. So here's a couple things that you want to consider, right? When you get laid off, for example, the most important piece of advice I can give you is, aside from the obvious things like apply for jobs and everything, is managing your confidence and energy. This might sound obvious, but it's not. It really is not. And the reason why I mention this is that whether you have to wake up in the morning and every day tell yourself, hey, everything's going to be okay, you're going to find a new job, you might have to actually tell yourself that, because if you don't, if you focus on scarcity and if you focus on the things you do not want to happen, right, which is you're running out of money, not paying bills and everything, focusing and thinking about stuff is not going to do anything for you. It's not going to help you find a job faster. And if anything, when you go to your interviews, that idea looming in the back of your head is going to make you come off so needy, so desperate, right? And you're not going to bring the best version of yourself to the interview. So the very first thing is managing your energy and confidence level and making sure that you understand, like, hey, I'm a resourceful person. I have a great attitude. I have good skill sets. I'm going to be the prize. There's a lot of companies out there for me to work for, but there's only one person like me on planet Earth, and that's me, right? As silly as that sounds, it makes a huge difference, my friends. Okay. But now let's get into some tactical approaches as to, how to look for a job. And I'm going to look to the chat and see if anybody wants to volunteer. Just if you can give me an example of a company that's interesting to work for, or if you want to just throw a title. If somebody wants to give me an idea, I would love that while I get this set up. If not, I'm just going to sort of pick something randomly. Okay. So somebody sent me an anonymous message. Okay. So, territory manager. Okay, great. So how do you end up getting a territory manager gig? Okay. So let me share screens here. Okay. All right. So, and of course, let me go and make sure that I have the right. Yep, there we go. I gave somebody a seizure doing that, of course. Sorry, guys. Okay, so let's pretend that I just got laid off and I'm looking for a territory manager gig. All right. So here's the first thing I recommend. Obviously, go and search it on LinkedIn, right? See what roles are open. So let's just do that, okay? Just for the sake of this exercise, okay? Obviously, there's going to be different things. Let's just pretend that it's in vascular surgery. Okay, so type in vascular surgery, and there's a variety of ways for you to search for this role. I'm not going to show you like the different things you can do, but search. All right, so vascular surgery. Okay, so here we go. There's one with DJO. I don't know if that's a vascular surgery role. Actually, that doesn't sound right. But let's just look at some of these examples. So we got some with BD, and here we go. Let me update. So first of all, look for the right experience level. So let's say you're territory manager. So that's mid senior to mid to senior level. I would look at some director roles as well. Okay. So always, you never know, you might have an opportunity to move up, right? So look for those roles. Okay. So let's take a look here. So there's this territory manager at DJO. Okay. Senior principal rep. You know, I'm just going to pick random things at this point. Okay. Now here's the key. All right. What you don't want to do is this. Okay. So here we go. Here's an example of a role. You're going to do what? You're going to click this button. You're going to, I'm going to turn that off because I'm not looking for a job. And you're going to go and do what? Apply. See, like, hey, can someone tell Becton Dickinson to get their act together? Like, they're $1 billion company. Why is it that this role doesn't have a page to be found? This kind of like sloppiness from our industry, I can't stand. So if you know somebody at BD, can you just tell them to get their act together? Like, what the hell is this? All right. So let's point that out. Lousy experience. Okay. Here's another one with BD. Let's see if it does the same thing. Yeah. Fantastic. So, yeah. So I just looked at 2 jobs from BD or Becton Dickinson. Garbage. Like, how many applicants are just never going to bother looking at BD? Those are 2 separate pages that have no page found. So that needs to be fixed. Really stupid. Just sloppy. Okay. Let's look at this DJO role. Okay. So if we look at the role, okay. Tarek's having a blast laughing at this. Yeah. Okay. So here's the role. All right. So here's what a loser will do. You go to this page, you click apply, you autofill with your resume, right? And then you submit and you sit back and wait. That's what a loser does. Okay. This is the dumbest thing in the world to do. Now, if that's the end of your application process, why? Because essentially you're selling yourself just like a product. You are a product that's going to be hired for a problem, right? You're pretty much selling yourself on features and benefits. And we all know you cannot sell anything on planet Earth just on features and benefits, because guess what's going to happen? Here's you with your features and benefits on your resume, and here's somebody else who's going to be better. There will always be somebody better. This is a great way to get overlooked. Okay. So don't do that. Right. I'm going to show you what you should do. Okay. Now let's use the example of this DJO one. Okay. I'm going to come back to this in a second. What you should be doing is going and applying to as many of these as possible, including roles that you would not take. That's right. Roles that you would not take. Why? Your brain cannot separate things. So if there's a job you really, really want and a bunch of other jobs that you kind of want, there's no difference. Your brain just knows that you want a job. And so what you should not do is apply to 1 or 2 roles you really want and sit back and wait. You need to start getting in the process of interviewing. And again, think about it. You just got laid off. Your energy levels are low. Maybe your confidence is rock. Your first order of business is to get that fixed immediately. Immediately get that fixed. Okay, let's start there. And so you now start feeding your brain some positive reinforcement. Hey, I'm getting interviews, even if it's for jobs you don't need or don't want. And in that process, what are you going to do? Right? You're going to practice your pitch on how you tell people about yourself. You're going to practice your negotiation skills. You just got to get in a process. Okay, very important. Okay, that's number 1. Okay, now number 2. After you apply to a role like this, so of course, obviously you have to just apply, right? What you need to do is, let's say it's the territory manager in Cincinnati. Well, what you do is you go to, you do a search on LinkedIn, okay? So we're going to do a quick search, all right? We're going to look at people, and now we're going to filter for the location. We're going to say, I'm just going to assume that for DJO, because you don't know where this person, the reporting, the person this person would report to or the hiring manager lives, it's probably somewhere in Ohio, assuming, because it's a big company. So let's assume that. So we're going to put Ohio, and then we're going to put current company, DJO. There we go. Okay. So now we have 39 results. So that's actually pretty easy to narrow down. You have 39 results of where you can connect with. Okay, so let's just assume. Okay, so there's a territory manager. Okay, so let's look at a couple things. There's one territory manager in Ohio. There's a few others. So I'm going to assume that it's going to be at the level of a director. So let's see, director, field services, biz ops, Midwest sales director at DJO. All right, Tim Huber has 2 LinkedIn profiles. Probably needs to fix that. Okay. And let's just put VP. Okay. So there's no VPs in Ohio, but let's add a couple other surrounding areas that are likely, related. Okay. So we'll put VP. So executive leader. Okay. So there's one. And I'm gonna show you guys specifically what I'm doing. Okay, let's put director. I just want to get a few other examples. Okay, perfect. Director, technical sales. Okay, so first, what you want to do is connect with the people who are in this region. Okay, why? Because then on your LinkedIn, as you, let's say, post or comment, you want them to get to notice your profile, right? Why is that important? Because if you do that and you get your profile set up the right way, remember, your profile is like a product page, okay? It's got to be public. So make sure your profile settings are set up so that, you don't have something like, I'll give you an example. Let's look at Tim Huber. I'm so sorry to do this. Like Tim, I can't see anything on this. This is such a bad profile, by the way. Somebody should tell this guy to change this. So I can't see his picture or anything. Make sure it's all public, okay? So don't do that. So then that way, when you comment on a post, or you let's say do a post yourself, even if it's just sharing a leadership article, you do something that makes somebody in that territory say, oh, that's really interesting, and come to your profile. Okay. And you'll be able to see who's looking at it. So one is connect with all those people, from junior people to people who be your peers to people you would report to, whoever, because you never know who's going to be the catalyst to see you and say, hey, so-and-so, I know we're hiring for a territory manager. Did you see this lady? Right? I think she'd be good, right? So now when they come into your profile, you need to have it set up where it tells a compelling story, right? Have your headline set up in a good way, good profile photo, maybe have some featured pieces here. Don't market your own company. So if the company that you just got laid off from, you have stuff here about them, get rid of that crap, okay? What you should put is, if you don't make content like I do, right? Maybe do a couple of posts, maybe post an HBR leadership article. So again, if it's, like try and present ideas about how you'd be a great fit for the role without them talking to you. So I would make a post about your top 5 approaches to like being a good territory manager and managing a territory. Not a lot of people post that. Do a post like that, highlight it here in the feature section. Maybe you have a article on leadership you want to share. Put that here. So now they're seeing this. Plus, do not do this other stupid thing that I hear salespeople say, which is, oh, don't put all your information in the in LinkedIn. You want somebody to ask for your resume. That's the dumbest piece of advice I've ever heard. Don't take marketing advice from a salesperson, by the way. Never do that. Okay. The reason why, think of it again, the more you think about yourself as a product, right? So this is a product page. The more you think of it like that, what are you going to do? Think about it. If somebody went to your website, would it make sense if a surgeon went to your website to learn about your product and you say, hey, don't put all the cool features and stuff about the product on the website. Have it on a PDF where if they want to learn more, they got to ask for it. That would be the dumbest thing in the world, right? That's what you're doing on your LinkedIn. So all your achievements, you won President's Award 3 times in a row, all those things, put it in here. Okay. So under your profile, right? Put down what you did now and assume that people don't know what your company is. There's people who I've met, they've never heard of Medtronic, believe it or not. Like, depending on like when I was in software. So always put like a couple sentences of who the company is, even if it's Medtronic or Boston Scientific. You can say publicly traded med device company with a market cap of 100 billion, whatever, right? Then put down your role, right? Not your responsibility, but what did you achieve? Okay. My LinkedIn profile is not the best example to see this right now because I started a business. So I really don't care about getting hired. But if you go down deeper in my profile, like let's see, like, okay, when I co-founded this company, I put down like results, because what are people looking for in your resume? They're looking for indications of results. Hey, if I buy this product, I hire this person, what are the results I'm going to get? Those are the benefits, my friends. Okay. All right. That's what people care about. They don't care about the responsibilities you had. Like, that's small talk. What are the results? Okay. So put that in. Okay. Now let's talk about what you do with this new network that you just developed. So you connected with all the people who are in that that area, like Brian Godfrey. You connected with Jacqueline. You connected with Tim Huber, he's doesn't got much on his LinkedIn. John Arndt. Okay. Now, here's what you have to do. Well, first of all, your goal right now, just get noticed by these people. Connect with them. Comment on their posts. Okay. So like, for example, I don't think Jacqueline's posted anything in a while. Okay. Man, yeah. So the last time Jacqueline posted anything was like 9 years ago. Okay. Dead end here. Okay. But that doesn't mean that she's not on LinkedIn. So it's likely maybe she logs onto LinkedIn and doesn't comment or like things. So you never know who's online. Okay. Let's look at John Arndt. Okay. So John, if you want to get his attention, okay, let's take a look at this. Okay. So he posted this thing 2 weeks ago. He reposted. So you can comment on this, right? So a lot of this stuff is old. Like, so, okay, he's hiring. Okay. Even though this is 1 month ago, go ahead and like the post. There's nobody who's commented on this. So guess what you should do? Leave a comment. Just be like, at John Art, love what you guys are doing over at, and tag the company, right? Because this guy logs in, he's going to notice that somebody commented. You just want to get noticed. The key here is just getting noticed. Then start getting an idea of like, what kind of content do they like? Okay. Now here's the next level of like, of persuasion. Let's say this is the hiring manager. What you need to do is that you need to go and read this about section. Why? So again, you apply for the role. The smart thing is to send this guy a message. What's even better, if you send a video message. So on LinkedIn, you can actually shoot a video just through LinkedIn's Messenger and send that. You can do that. Or if you're smart, use a tool like Vidyard where you can record something, send it, and you can tell if somebody watched it or not. Now in that, right, What are you asking for? It's not you're asking for a job. First, you're going to read this about section because this guy wrote this. This is in his language. Guess what? These are clues to the language that are going to resonate with him, right? Thinks beyond the status quo to question assumptions. So how do you use this in your pitch, right? If you send him a message, hey, John, my name is Omar. Notice you're looking for a territory manager. I actually wanted to reach out because I'm based in the Cincinnati, Ohio region. There's actually 2 or 3 really specific strategies I'd really love to share with you that would be helpful in terms of opening up the market here. And I'd like to learn more about the role and see if it's a fit for me. Okay. I'm somebody that I like to consider, I think beyond the status quo. I like to try and challenge assumptions. So now I'm using his language in my pitch, and people will not pick this up. All they'll know is that they like this. And even me, I've had people pitch to me this way, and I knew what they were doing. I was still persuaded by it. That's the beauty about persuasion. Even when the end user knows what you're doing, they can't help but be persuaded by it. So again, this is telling you what's important to this guy, right? Okay. Build out MedTech businesses, right? Sought out to lead strategic initiatives, leads, creates culture. Like, you getting an idea of what this guy's looking for, right? So he wants like a team player, and I don't even have to read this guy's background. It's kind of obvious what most leaders want in a hire, right? Then go check out where they've worked, but then you can go down, and sometimes, so this guy doesn't have any, which is unfortunate. You should change that as a leader. Some of these people have written recommendations. Again, you're getting an idea of the language they're using. Okay. Now, when you do this at scale, what does it look like? You're growing your network. You're practicing a skill of learning how to source and understand what's important to this person. You're doing something unique, because I guarantee you, while every other loser is doing what? Paying a resume writer a $500 to update their resume and then submitting their resume and praying to God that they get picked. You're bypassing that and standing up by sending not only a unique message that has been filtered and created by you to resonate with them, you're sending a video message, right? And so that by itself is going to get attention. It will set you far apart. Now, here's the last tip that I'm going to give. Okay. And let me stop sharing and come back. And then we're going to jump right into Q&A. And I see Wissam has a comment I'm going to pull up. Now, when you do the pitch, here's the most important thing. Again, if you haven't noticed, the same things that you do, the things that I teach in my program, and a lot of the members, you guys learn through modules of how do you get demos with surgeons. It's the same thing with getting a job, which is you need to use somebody's curiosity and imagination. If you watch a horror movie, right? Horror movies, a lot of times they're not that scary. Some of them are. What's the scariest part of the horror movie? It's not the movie itself. It's often the trailer, the preview. Why? Because in the preview of a horror movie, they're going to show you like a monster or something. Like, they'll show only the darkness, the sounds, everything. You can't see it. So that causes you to go see the movie because you want to see what the monster is. But that plays to your imagination, because every audience member who watches that trailer of a horror movie has their imagination activated to think about the scariest thing to that person. So individually. Now, I can't guess what that VP is interested in, right? Maybe he's hiring a territory manager because he wants somebody to build on existing business. Maybe he wants somebody who's going to go get new business. I mean, who knows what's important to him? I can't figure that out. The best thing I can do is, and when I send that video pitch, right, and your pitch is 5 to 10 minutes, because everybody's got 5 to 10 minutes. And so in your pitch, you're going to have a attention grabbing opening, curiosity generating offer, and an irresistible offer, quick expansion about yourself, and then a call to action. So that's going to look like this. Hey, John, notice that you're hiring a territory manager in Cincinnati, Ohio, and I actually wanted to chat with you to see if it would be a good fit for me, because there's actually 3 very specific strategies in this area, because I know this market extremely well. I wanted to share with you that I think that it would be a valuable way for you to hit your goals. And I'd love to just talk that through with you and share how I can specifically help the team. I have over 5 years of experience in orthopedics. I've lived in this area, so I know every single surgeon. I know every hospital inside and out. And I love to kind of share more about what I could bring to your team, and also learn like is this role a fit for me, and if I would be if it would be a good fit for both of us. So if you got 5 or 10 minutes, I dropped my calendar link below. Go ahead and just grab time, or I left myself. Feel free to just shoot me a message. Looking forward to talking. Okay. Now, if we deconstruct that again, you mentioned 2 to 3 strategies that you'd love to share with him. You don't tell him what it is, right? It's like, hey, I have 2 or 3 things I'd love to share about how that I can help in that territory. They're going to be curious about what those things are, right? Now, the other thing is that as you notice, you should never say, "Oh, I'm super excited for the role. I'd love to work for you," everything, because now you're automatically putting yourself what in a position of submission, right? It's like they hold the power. Versus saying something like, I'd love to learn more about the role and see if it's a fit for me. Not see if I'm a fit for the role, see if it's, so you have to play these word games, right? That's persuasion. And by asking for a 5 to 10 minute meeting, everybody has time for that, and make it easy for them. So I recommend opening a Calendly link. So go to calendly.com or any random online scheduler. So a lot of them are free. So get that, plug it to your calendar, so they can pick a time and schedule it for 15 minutes, or put yourself in. Because a lot of times when somebody shoots me a message for help, if they put their cell phone in there and I happen to be free, I'll just call them, right? So that's the way that I would do it. So let's before we jump to questions from people, let's take a quick look. Wissam Sonabal. Wissam, thanks for joining. He said, I agree. We posted a couple of positions, and I must admit, I enjoy the true hunters that try to reach out in various ways. Yeah. So here, okay. So let me give some advice for the companies who are recruiting. So Wissam, totally agree with that. Here's the problem again, from the company standpoint. So first of all, let's start with an important thing. Just because somebody's unemployed and looking, that doesn't mean that they're not a great fit, right? But from a company standpoint, like if I'm hiring somebody, if I find somebody who happens to be looking for a job and they're a great fit, man, I won the lotto. But a lot of times you want to get somebody to quit their job. You want, like somebody who's killing it in their job, but they're still employed. You want that person to quit and come work for you. So like the post and pray job approach is just a losing one. This is why a lot of companies struggle to hire talent, and then they have to hire a recruiter, and the recruiter is also like, behind on things because they have to do all this marketing for you, right? So what I recommend is, as the CEO and founder of the company, you also should post these roles, right? Like make a post about it and describe who you're looking for, right? What problems would they solve? And more importantly, this should be in the job description and in your post, like, who are these people going to become when they come to work for you? What can they expect to do? What problems they solve? Because look, there's too many med device companies, in my opinion. They are so incredibly arrogant. They just think that, everybody wants to come work for us. Meanwhile, you got to realize that you're competing with SaaS companies. You're competing with tech companies. And surprise, surprise, you're competing with me because my company's growing. And as of right now, I mean, I haven't posted anything yet. I found a couple of people, but like I'm looking for really good sales people, and I pay out pretty damn well, And the other thing that people get from me, aside from getting paid out really well, is that I outline like, hey, you come work for me. Here's what you're going to get for free. I'm going to invest in your development. You're going to learn extremely good sales processes. And I told this to a candidate yesterday who I ended up hiring. I was like, look, let's assume that it doesn't work out. Let's say this role is not for you and everything. Just the time that you're going to spend with me. Sorry, I'm getting spammed already on YouTube. It took a few weeks and I figured like, yep. So I'm getting spammed on YouTube. Just the time you're going to spend with me, you're going to learn so much about sales processes, persuasion, everything. So if you decide to leave and go to another company, go somewhere else, like in a few months or even a few years, you're going to benefit from your time here. So like I've pitched the candidate on like why it's like the best idea is to come to work for me, right? So you have to really think about that as an employer, which is, how do I convince people to like come work for me? How do I get people excited, right? It's not enough, by the way, to have a cool technology or raise a bunch of money. I'm sorry. Like, who cares? Like that's like, I think one of the big mistakes I see tech companies make is like, oh, we raised a lot of money. We have such a cool disruptive technology. Great. Who am I going to become when I come work for you? What do I get to do, right? What problems am I solving? So I hope that helps. And I'm going to put this user in timeout. There we go. Man, I can't believe that it's been like, it took this long for me to start getting trolled on one of these channels. I figured it'd happen sooner. So let me open it up for questions. If you're on my Zoom, go ahead and raise your hand. I'm going to bring you on live. But meantime, let me take a look at the submitted questions. Let's see. I don't see any submitted questions. So I think, Jay, did you have a question you wanted to ask? If you did, like, go ahead and raise your hand. I'm going to bring you on live. So if you have a question, guys, like on Zoom, raise your hand. And for those who are on LinkedIn, again, you know how this rolls, right? You got a good question, drop it in the chat. If I think it's a good question, I'll answer it. Okay. So let's take a look. So I think I have an anonymous question here. Let me take a look at this question. Okay. So I'm gonna. This is an anonymous question, so I'm gonna do my best to read this without. I don't think anybody's gonna figure out what company this is or anything. So the person submitted this question. They mentioned they're like in a really tough spot with a certain company. They essentially committed. They haven't made more than their guarantee in the first 12 months, which was half the OTE. And because of like a lot of different supply chain, back orders, resources, like all these problems, they might not see commission for like 3 to 6 months because they don't make money until projects are implemented. So that's a tough situation, right? As a salesperson, you do everything you can, but things are out of control, like supply chain. And this person also said that they have, again, millions of dollars in pipeline. If it all closes, the person still doesn't get to a certain amount of money because of the draw. Already sold nearly a certain number for the year, making less than 6 figures. The numbers just don't add up. Comp plan is extremely complex because once the guarantee is up, couldn't live just on the base salary alone. Advised to take the draw by their boss, and now they technically owe the company money. Reliability issues are causing the 2 biggest deals that they have in their pipeline to fail, despite their greatest efforts. And they also, and I hate this, they sell on a team, and what was once 14 or 16 people, it's now like 2 or 3 people. There's no corporate support. It's just a bad situation. Okay, let's just put it this way. So again, this is a long question, so I'm going to try and wrap it up and then answer. They know what they need to do. They just don't know how, because they're only like a couple years in. And what their concern is like, how do I explain this to prospective employers? Not even sure that that they want to stay in med device, as if they've had similar experiences in the past. Toxic culture, no one speaks up, et cetera, et cetera. And this person's big thing is like, if they're managing more than $5, $6, $7, $8 million plus pipeline for the company and then making less than like 100K, something is seriously wrong. Yes, I absolutely agree with that. So now, and it's a circus, and people are leaving in droves. Yeah, and this person's situation is tough because they're kind of the sole earner, and they need to figure something out. So let me put that. Let me put that up real quick. Okay. So to the person who asked that question, right? Jackson, John, Stephanie, if you have questions, just go ahead and raise your hand. So here's my thing. Okay. So let me just summarize the situation, right? So they're at a company where, because of back orders and supply chain issues and everything, they can't fulfill on implementing projects for like a quarter. It seems like they have millions of dollars in their pipeline, and because of issues that are outside of their control, right? They're not gonna get the guarantee, and they're gonna have to like pull some money and owe the company money. So my recommendation is that if at this point you're saying the words like it's a bad place, it's toxic, people are leaving in droves, that's a huge indication you need to just leave. And the person who submitted this, I know who it is. If you're at a company for more than a year and you leave, that's totally okay, right? That's totally okay. These things happen, okay? So number one, don't feel bad about it. At the end of the day, I don't care who you work for, even if it's a little startup. You make decisions that's best for you and your family, number one. Period, end of story. And I'm an employer. I would give that same advice to my own employees. You make the best decision for you and your family. If that means that like the employer gets hurt, whatever. Seriously, right? You have a responsibility to your family. So that's number one. Number two, I would immediately move into doing the exact process I just showed. Look for roles, apply for them, add everybody in that company who's in that territory, the hiring managers, associates, etc. Start sending messages to try and work your way up the ladder to get an interview. Okay. Don't just rely, because keep in mind, especially if the company is larger than 100 people, they have their own system. HR is going to get these freaking applications, and before it even gets to HR, it's going to be filtered out through a computer or some algorithm, and you may not even be looked at just because of some stupid formality, right? No offense to HR people. HR hates recruiting. They're not good at recruiting. Do not leave your career in the hands of HR. You need to take control of this. Start applying to a bunch of roles. Apply broadly. Apply in your specialty. Apply in adjacent specialties, apply in specialties that are like have nothing to do with what you do. So if you're in like vascular surgery, apply to cardiology, also apply to orthopedics, just apply broadly. Okay. And at the same time, think about who services those kinds of physicians. So if you've been selling into, let's say, vascular surgery for a while or orthopedics, there are software companies that sell to these people. You got to get super creative. So every day, like religion, you wake up, you brush your teeth, you pray to God, you get on LinkedIn. All right. You get on LinkedIn, you add people, you apply for roles, and you just start scrolling. You're trying to get information at this point, right? The other thing I recommend, okay, the most important relationship in your career is with one or two really good recruiters. This is the time to make those calls and be like, hey, John, hey, Jessica, I got to get back on a call with you. This company's not working out. Now, here's my thing with recruiters. For every one good recruiter that's out there, I'll tell you what, there's like 99 garbage ones. I really mean, and when I say garbage, I mean, they don't know anything about the industry. They are like terrible recruiters. They're just worthless. I don't know how else to say this. And I mention this to prepare you for the fact that you're going to have conversations with these people. So you got to kiss a lot of frogs on the way. Here's how you get a recruiter on the phone. Make sure your LinkedIn is up to date. Again, you're interested in my program, check my, check out the links on my profile. I have a small mini course just on profile, updating your profile. I might just discount that actually and make that available to people just to help people out in the situation. But anyway, you're going to shoot a recruiter message. You're not sending them a resume. Let it all be on LinkedIn. And you're going to send them a message, say, hey, John, great to connect. I'm currently working in sales at XYZ company, but I'm at a point where, the company's having some problems. And right now it's just not a good fit for me. And so I'm in the middle of interviewing. So even if you have no interviews, you have to say, I'm in the middle of interviewing, but I would like to know what kind of companies you represent. I would love to see if you have time for a quick 5-minute intro call so I can learn about the roles that you have. But also I'd like to learn about the roles you're trying to fill because there's some leadership that I know that's leaving and maybe I can connect you. So now keep in mind, if you want to get people on a phone call, you need to offer something to them that makes them validate why that would be a good use of their time. So you can't go in saying, hey, jump on the phone with me, because I'd like to know what you have. They don't have time for that. Even like the crappiest recruiters. So what you need to do is give them, again, use their imagination. Hey, I'd love to get on the phone, tell you a little about myself, learn about what roles you have. Also, I want to learn what roles you have because there's senior leadership that I know that's leaving. And if you have a role that might fit one of them, I'd be very happy to put you in contact with them. That's what recruiters want. A recruiter is trying to figure out like what executive leader, because that's what they make money off of, is in the process of looking and searching. And how do I get access to them before other people do? Now, you get on the phone, 5 minutes, you got to structure out like, how do you highlight, what are the best things about yourself, right? And what I recommend is like a 30, 60-second elevator pitch. Just like you have an elevator pitch for your product, you need an elevator pitch for you. That elevator pitch should be some combination of, your background, like where'd you grow up, what'd you do, went to college, whatever you want to say, right? Some key highlights in your career, what your career theme is, okay? And that's it. So for example, for me, this is my 30-second pitch. I've used this for a long time. I'm going to make it super short here. Grew up in El Paso, Texas, first generation American. My dad's from Iraq, mom's from Turkey. Went to University of Texas, Paso to study biology and chemistry. Went on to medical school, ended up dropping out. And then I started off in surgical robotics, carrying the bag in sales, and then moved into marketing. The last 10 years of my career has been focused on taking extremely expensive, highly complicated technology to market, engineering a category for it, and then helping that company drive adoption. And I do that mainly through social media. Do you see how like tight that is? So I tell some interesting things about myself. I differentiate myself, but then like I pepper in, some things about my career, right? That's what you need to do because when these recruiters are looking for roles, you need to find a way to stand out in their mind, right? So the more interesting the story, the better. Okay. Now, the other thing is try and see how you can help this recruiter, right? The more you help people, the more willing people are, the more people are willing to help you. And for those who are not currently searching for jobs, I recommend just starting these relationships with recruiters and just be like, hey, I'm actually not looking for any job. I'm actually trying to just find a really good recruiter. So in the near future, if I need to use one or I need one personally, like I know who to reach out to, but I also want to see what roles you're filling so I can help, right? I've made a lot of recruiter contacts just doing this, right? So do those things. I hope this is this has been helpful for you. But again, if you don't see if there's no hope in the future where you're at, there's no power in the present, none. And so you have to change that, right? And you have to kind of cut your losses, call a spade, and get out. So to the person who submitted that question and they're in that tough situation, I would start moving now, right? And again, the most important thing, this person's in a toxic culture. It sounds like, they had a big team. It's, so I can only imagine how crappy it is to work at this place. You cannot let this affect you. You have to, in your mind, every day convince yourself, like you have to say it out loud. Hey, this job, the way it's turned out right now, happened for the reason. And that's because I'm going to find an even better job. I'm going to be happier. It's going to be great. I just got to put myself out there. And so doing all these things, reaching out to people, you're having more conversations, you're learning things, like your brain is going to interpret this activity as momentum, right? And you need to generate momentum so that when you go into these interviews, you have a lot of momentum going in, energy, confidence, etc. I feel like there's a whole course on this that I should probably record and teach at some point. But for the most part, I hope I've been able to help with what I shared so far. All right, so we got some questions. One from Guida Loveras and then Dewan Owens. Dewan. So I'm gonna go with Guida first, just because Guida's in my program. I gotta prioritize people in my program first. All right, so Guida's question is, let's see. Okay. So Guy's question is like, for someone getting a ton of recruiters reaching out to all the time, how do you pick and choose who to entertain? That's a great question, man. So let's okay. I'm going to show you an example of some recruiters who, let's see. I'll show you some examples of recruiters who I think are good, okay, and what you should look for, okay. So let me pull this up. So I'm going to give you two ways to evaluate this guy. One just online, and two outside of that. So let me think of okay. So both these guys I know. All right. So let me show you two examples. Okay. So Guida, a lot of this is just, it's actually very much like dating. Like you have no idea until you talk to them. So a lot of times on the surface, somebody might look amazing and you talk to them and you're like, man, this person is like not a good recruiter. Likewise, there's some recruiters who I've seen, like they don't have much on their LinkedIn. And I'm like, man, this kind of seems like a dud. But then I talk to them. I'm like, no, you know what? This is a solid recruiter. So what I would say is that always try and take the call and try and keep it to 5-10 minutes. Like what I try and do is I get their phone number. I'm like, look, when I have a moment, I'll give you a call, or schedule a meeting and just schedule a phone call. And during that time, do it like when you're driving, taking a walk, this is the networking side. So here's my approach of how do I evaluate a good recruiter. Okay. So I'm going to show you two people who I feel are really good recruiters. And I'm going to show you how I feel that they're a good recruiter online, like what things you should look for. And then how do you evaluate them on the phone call? So online, like, I'm just going to say this. I could be absolutely wrong about this, but it's 2022. LinkedIn, their main source of revenue and income is tools for recruiters. This is where people get recruited. If you're a recruiter and you don't have somewhat of a button up on LinkedIn, like I can't take you seriously. And that's very hard criticism, but it's just like, if you're a software company and you don't have a decent like online demo or website, like I can't take you seriously. So here's what I look for in a recruiter. Like, does their LinkedIn look professional? Number one, right? So you guys know, I mean, Mike Moore's in our program, so there's a reason why his LinkedIn looks this good too. But like, okay, here's why I think Mike's a great recruiter, right? Very clear about what he does, right? Next thing, the guy's got a podcast. It's like, okay, so this guy just isn't just doing MedTech because it pays really well. Like he's involved in the industry. He's a thought leader in the industry. He's talking to thought leaders. So what content do they produce to show that, hey, I'm staying ahead of things in this industry, right? That's number one. Number two, do they have a good following? Following doesn't matter for a lot of things, but when it comes to recruiters, absolutely. So he's got 19,000 followers. That's a good following, right? But then I also want to see, his posts. Like, okay, what is this guy posting? He's just posting jobs, job searches, like that's kind of boring, right? Okay. So here's a post he reposted somebody's jobs, but then it looks like he's actually doing a lot of thought leadership, right? Educating people like, okay, look, like how non-compete agreements are enforced in every state. How many recruiters do you know actually educate you on how a non-compete works? Like that stands out. That what this tells me is like this guy's going to have your back as somebody who's going to represent you, right? So I try and see like, see, I did go on a show. So that episode's dropping next week. It's a good episode. So I want to see that this person's actually active on LinkedIn. They're a thought leader, because if they're doing a good job marketing themselves, guess what? They're going to have really good roles. Mike Moore actually covers some really interesting companies. He's the only recruiter that I know of that covers both med device companies and software SaaS companies. He's got a foot in med device. He's got a foot in the tech world. He's the only guy I know who does this. If there's others, I'd love to know who they are. Haven't found them. Another person who I also know, Greg Drolickson. Okay. Now, Greg, one thing, again, I love Greg. My one piece of advice to Greg is like, similar to Mike, like he's got a lot of insight in the industry and everything. He needs to show that because his LinkedIn does not convey that, right? You want these things to be conveyed without somebody talking to you. So again, but how do you judge Greg? It's like, okay, you go and see, he's been in the industry for a while. Let's go to activities. Does he do any thought leadership? Does he post a lot? Okay, so he is posting a little bit, like some industry news, but again, not making a whole lot of his own content, right? So that's one thing where I'm like, okay, so he's posting industry news, but where's his own content, his own thought leadership pieces? That's the one thing I would recommend to Greg. Now, keep in mind, Greg is a recruiter. Like if I had to go back and look for a job, I'd go to Mike Moore. Greg's another guy I'd go to. So one has obviously got this amazing LinkedIn presence. The other one can work on it. He's got a great following, 20,000 followers, right? Now, here's the thing that you have to evaluate offline, Gaida. And let me come back real quick. Okay. So now you know what to evaluate online. Okay. And again, not everybody's going to look like that. You might be dealing with an associate, like a junior recruiter. When you get on, you'll be able to tell immediately what this person knows about the industry. So what I would say is that if they're recruiting you for a job, that's the case, here are the questions I would ask. I would ask questions like, what are the 3 reasons this position has been made? Like, what problems are they supposed to solve? Okay. Tell me a little bit about the technology. What made you want to recruit for this company? Okay. They need to give like educated answers. Like, let me give you an educated answer to this. Hey, what made you want to recruit for this company? Yeah, this surgical robotics company is very interesting because even though there's a lot of surgical robotic companies out there, this one has a very interesting business model. They're doing a reusable approach. So instead of disposable, it's a reusable approach. I've never seen anything like that. They have this person as the VP of sales. They have this person at VP of marketing. They came out of these companies. So they've recruited some really, like, that's an educated answer versus some BS answer like, well, they have really innovative, cutting edge. If they can't specifically explain things that you're learning, like truly learning about the company, that's not a good recruiter. Sorry. That's number one. On the questions about the role, if they can't answer some basic questions about the role, like why is this role being created? Like what problems can they solve? If they say something like, oh, that's something I'll leave to the hiring manager to explain. Sorry, waste of my time. Okay. Because that's a recruiter who hasn't done the due diligence, right? Now, here's the real key. And again, like I remember Greg Drollickson reached out to me when I was a head of growth. I knew nothing about him. I got on the call with him and I was like, and I asked him these kind of questions, and I was impressed with how Greg spoke about roles. I was impressed with how he understood technology. So it was very clear he knows this industry. Here's a key though. Ask them this, Gaida. What made you want to reach out to me? Okay, because that's going to explain a lot. Like, how thorough is this person? If they say some nonsense like, "Oh, I see you have 10 years of experience," or like really basic stuff, it's just like I'm just not impressed with that. Because think of it like this: if you ask somebody, "Hey, what made you want to reach out to me for this role?" and their answer is some vanilla answer like, "Oh, you worked at, I don't know, Medtronic for a few years and you did that, like you work in spine and they're a spine company and you worked in this territory and that's a territory." That's not a good recruiter, because guess what? When it comes time for you to get placed and there's a company you're interested in, guess what this person's going to do? They're going to do the same thing they just did to you to a company. Like, oh, well, Gaida worked at this company for this long and everything. You want someone who's going to be able to go and back you up. Like Greg was trying to get me placed for a really high position many years ago. It didn't work out because of the board, right? But he went and I was in the final stages for this publicly traded company. And Greg was like, hey, look, he doesn't have Omar doesn't have as many years of experience as like this other, some of these other candidates. But here's what makes him really good. He's done X, Y, Z. He did this, he did that. Like, that's the kind of recruiter you want. You want someone who's going to have even though the company pays him, Okay. At the end of the day, these recruiters, what really is makes their business happen is the way they manage people and their relationships. Perfect example, Mike Moore. I met Mike Moore this year. Okay. Why do I say he's a great recruiter? Even though I've never worked with him personally for any job placement, it's because I've seen how Mike handles his candidates, right? He handles them with the utmost respect. He has the candidates back. He's also doing his best job to find the best candidate for the company, right? But he balances that out. Let me give you an example of like the crappiest recruiter I've ever worked with. Okay, like not only this person, but to some extent this firm. I'm not going to mention the firm name. Like I will never recommend them. I went and interviewed for a company. I was I think like 3 interviews in. I interviewed with like the chief commercial officer. I don't know who else, blah, blah, blah. And it was for a director of marketing role, which was kind of a downgrade from where I was. I was a head of growth in a Silicon Valley company. And this is for a robotics company. It was a director of marketing to build their marketing department. Whatever. All right. This guy lost so much respect for me because in my final stages, which was to talk to the CEO, he calls me out of the blue and says, hey, everyone really likes you, Omar. But we're going to have a change, right? We're going to have a change with the job title. I'm like, really? What's the change? And the change is to go from a director of marketing to a marketing manager. Okay. So I'm 3 interviews in. I'm a head of growth at a tech company. And this guy's trying to convince me not only director of marketing to build out a company's department, but to downgrade to a marketing manager. And sometimes this happens. A company will do something and it's out of the recruiter's hand and the recruiter's being forced. The right answer that this moron, sorry, and he's probably listened to this, told me was the right answer to it is like, hey, Omar, I agree with you. I don't agree with this decision. I think it's extremely unfair because you're already in the process. I told the company this. I told the CEO this. They didn't want to listen to me. Like it's really up to you, man. Like that's the proper answer. Here was his answer. Oh, but Omar, the most people you've managed is like 3 people. They really want someone who's managed 5 people. So like, I ended that call so quickly. I will never work with that guy. Like that's a joke of a recruiter, in my opinion. Okay. So anyways, I kind of vented a little bit. So guys, my best advice to you is that sometimes like it's a game of numbers, short calls, 5-minute intro, tell me about the role, tell me what you're looking for. And then if you like the person, right, what I would say is ask them about other roles they're trying to fill and just say, hey, I have a really good network. I'm always looking to help other people. Let me know what kind of roles you have right now that you're trying to fill. I might find somebody. And they might message you and say, hey, do you know anybody for this? I still get recruiters reaching out to me and I'm like, yeah, you know what? That's not for me, but I think this person at this company would be a great fit for that. Do you want me to make an intro? Like just doing that, recruiters will appreciate. So the day that you need to reach out for some help, they'll remember that you helped them, right? This is the key to life. Okay. So I hope that was helpful. Great question, Gaida. Funny enough, just like on the same topic. So Duan, what advice would you give to a person interested in becoming a recruiter? My advice is just like demonstrate that you're a subject matter expert for that role that you can recruit for. Show that your due diligence process on developing a profile for a candidate is extremely thorough, and more importantly, it's like a lot of it's persuasion. You gotta show that you can get somebody to quit their job and move their family across the country for a role. But I can't talk too much about it, Duan, because I'm not a recruiter. That's just my perspective. What I would recommend, go. If you want to learn more about becoming a recruiter, go follow Mike Moore. Mike Moore's content on is fantastic. You'll learn a lot about recruiting just from following Mike Moore. Awesome. Okay. By the way, big shout out. Thanks. Thank you, guys. Big shout out to Gaida. So Gaida's a member in my program, and her content has just been absolute fire. Go look at her latest post. That thing blew up. Really well written. It's a good post. I just go look at her latest post. I recommend to go check it out. All right. Milan Patel. What's up, Milan? Milan has a question. Hi, Omar. What's the best way to go about getting into medical sales without sales history? I have been in a clinical role the last 2 years, and I'm ready to break out. Great question, Milan. So my recommendation is there's a couple things you do. One, actually just, because I actually have it, I believe it or not, I have like 2 seats that didn't get filled. So if you're interested, there is a sorry, not to sell, but like, you know, I'm very good at what I do. I do have a program actually that I've made just for, if you qualify, I don't know if you do, for people who are early in their careers who are trying to go from like clinical specialist or associate into like a full-time sales role. It's a really good program. There's some really solid people in it. We just started a week ago, and there's 2 seats that I didn't get filled, and I just kind of was going to write them off. So if you're interested in that program, shoot me a message and I'll send you an application. Now, to answer your question, to get into a sales role, you have to demonstrate something of value. The benefit for you is that you're in a clinical role. Believe it or not, my friend, you're in a much better position to get into a sales role. You need to demonstrate that your clinical knowledge can be translated into pipeline. Okay. The problem with most clinical people is that they rely on having a clinical discussion, right? And hoping that some random way somebody's going to be around the corner, or they're going to somehow magically notice this and say, "Oh, we should make that a salesperson." That's not how the world works. It's just like, if I have a really good product, if it's really good, people just buy it. That's not how the world works. You got to sell things, right? And so what I would recommend doing is, number one, develop a history to show that you can actually sell. So if you're a clinical specialist role, one of the roles of a clinical role is driving utilization, right? That's really important. So whatever you have, there's something in your role where you have some aspect of selling. Really demonstrate that. That's number one. Okay. Number two, use LinkedIn to engage with physicians clinically, because there's a lot of physicians who post content on LinkedIn. They post cases, and so what a better way to start having a clinical discussion publicly, so hiring managers see it, than on LinkedIn? Because honestly, you may, and I'm going to go look at your profile real quick. I'm not going to mention what company you work for. But you might, let's see. Gosh, how do I find you? You might be able to get a promotion at your current company, and get into a sales role. What's likely going to happen though is that you're going to have to. Here we go. I just found you. Okay, so yeah, you're a clinical specialist. Okay, so I see where you're at. Yeah, honestly, look, Milan, you have a great role. You have a great background. So and you're actually here in SoCal. So look, man, what I would say is, you're not going to get that sales role at the company you're at. It could happen. It's unlikely. What you need to do is network your way and convince another company to hire you. And the way you do that, again, go through the process. If you just joined, watch this program, because it's going to teach you how you can get those jobs. Reach out to hiring managers, do a video pitch. And here's your video pitch. Like, look, I see, Milan, that you have a very deep background in respiratory therapy, I believe. Let me go back and look. You went away. So you need to demonstrate and just say, hey, I have a clinical background. I know all the clinicians in this area. From day one, I'll be able to grow pipeline. Give me a shot. Like, no one's going to hire you for your sales experience because you have none. What somebody's going to hire you for is your attitude, your coachability, and your unique skill set. And just say, you know what? The combination of this guy's attitude, his ambition, and his clinical background, I'm willing to take a bet on that, because I can teach this guy the sales process that we have, and let's just see how he does. All right. Someone needs to take a bet on you. Right. And there's something to be said. Like, again, could you get promoted at your current company to that role? Yeah, it's possible. But there's something about branding there, because Milan Patel at the company you're at currently is already branded as a clinical guy. They're always going to see you as a clinical guy. It's very, very difficult to undo that. Right? That's just the unfortunate fact. You need to go somewhere where you don't have a brand, and someone needs to imagine. Remember, I keep talking about using the imagination. Someone needs to look at you and then imagine you in the future, and then see that potential. That's what you're getting somebody to bank on. Okay. Now, along with this, I'm just going to say this right now. Be prepared. If you get a full-time rep role, man, more power to you. What's going to likely happen is that you might have to start out as an associate, for example, right? You get that opportunity, do it. Whatever God gives you, whatever you believe in, God or the universe, whatever you're given, make something out of that, man. When I started out in my career, I was, in sales. I was given 2 territories I did not want. I made something out of that, right? When I started off as a marketing manager, I was managing conferences. I wasn't crazy about conferences. Man, I used that. I leveraged that in my career. So whatever you're given, utilize it. So the good news for you is that honestly, clinical people are the best salespeople if they learn how to sell. That's very important. You can't just be a clinical person and go have clinical discussions with a doctor and not know how to push them forward into a process, right? So if you learn how to sell, and honestly, you networking and seeing what's out there is going to be a real test, because you're going to have to do that when you get into a sales role, right? So that's my challenge to you. If you're interested to learn more about, I guess, the early career program that I have, shoot me a message on LinkedIn. I'll send you an application. I'd love to chat and just see if you're a fit for it or not. All right, let's take a look over at. Oh wow, look at that! There's more people who joined the Zoom. So let's see. Mike Moore says, I remember when I called Omar about a job with Mike Moore called me. That's how we first connected. Mike Moore called me with a job and I asked him these questions. So yeah, Mike, I was totally vetting you. But yeah, Mike's a good recruiter. Again, think of recruiters, think of yourself as like a professional athlete. Every professional athlete, even LeBron James, has an agent. Okay. That agent is going to work with the teams, but they have that athlete's back, right? And there's a way where you can make a deal that works great for the company, great for the candidate. But in my opinion, and again, maybe there's a wrong way to think about it. The recruiters that suck are just the ones that, they're not focused on helping the candidate with their needs. They're just kind of slaves to whatever the company says. That's not a recruiter. That's that's an order taker, to be honest with you. But that being said, my friends, and again, this is a message to Guida because she had asked the questions. The most important relationship you're going to have in your career is with a few good recruiters, straight up. Okay, if you have any questions on Zoom, please raise your hand, and then let me go over to LinkedIn and see if I have any other questions. No other questions. Awesome. Okay, great. Well, everybody, we're going to call it there. Hope this has been helpful. Great to be back. And I'll be seeing you on LinkedIn as always. If you haven't already, by the way, I always got to remember to do this. If you haven't already, go check out the State of MedTech. We're on Apple, Spotify, YouTube. The show is growing. We have some awesome guests. We had former president of Stryker Instruments, Jim Heath. That was our latest episode. Go check that out. If you like the show, hey, subscribe, give us 5 stars, and write a review. It takes like 5 seconds. And we're starting to climb the charts. We're going to break that top 10 this year. Thanks to you guys. All right. Hope you are well. And again, for those of you who may have just lost your jobs, and you're trying to look for something new and everything, most important thing, keep your head up. This is everything happens for a reason. Perception is reality. It really is. And so I want you to perceive this as happening for a reason, which is to start anew, to go on to a better company in a better role, in a better circumstances, all these things. Really focus on the potential and the excitement of your future, okay? And let go of the negativity, the toxicity, all the failure of the past. You have to let that go behind you. And to kind of help you a little bit along that, who knows how this world works? Maybe I'm a magical genie that literally was placed here for you to watch this whole broadcast. And you, my friend, actually made it to the very end of this broadcast. It's literally just you and me, right? And there's no way to prove whether or not that's true. I mean, look, I'm in this library. I'm communicating you through the internet. It's kind of like magic. I got this beard. I got these glasses. I kind of look like a genie. And so if that was the case, I'm here to tell you that the next steps you take, if you do it confidently, if you look with excitement and enthusiasm,
and take action, you can manufacture the kind of future and the kind of job you want to move on to next. So if I were a magical genie and I just said, hey, you're going to end up with your dream job at the end of this year. I can't tell you where it's going to be. I can't tell you the industry, nothing. But all I can tell you is that you have to be told no 57 times. And on the 58th time that you try and apply for a role, reach out to a hiring manager, etc., you will find the perfect role. If that was true, if you believe that, and maybe that is true, you would happily go and apply for roles left and right and get rejected, counting number 1, number 2, 46, 47. Okay. So I want you to take that same kind of attitude and move forward tomorrow, which is a new day for you, applying for roles, reaching out to hiring managers directly, pitching you as the product, the solution to their problems. You are the code that's going to, the unlock code for their future, right? So I hope that was helpful. I hope it was inspiring. More importantly, I hope it gave you some hope. If there's hope in the future, there's going to be power in the present. You're not going to have any power by thinking about the crap company you just left. Okay. All right, everybody. Have a great evening. I'll see you next time.